my name's Louie, and this is Star. I went through a program called Canines for Warriors. It's out of Florida, and it's an outstanding program that was started by a mother and her son who was deployed to Iraq and came back with PTSD. So when I returned with PTSD, I was having a lot of symptoms, and some of the symptoms that I was having that I didn't really want to recognize was the fact that I was having nightmares, sleepwalking in the middle of the night, grabbing weapons, not knowing what I was grabbing, waking up in the corner of a room. I was overdosing on medication on accident. So because of my traumatic brain injury, I kept thinking, I'll take Benadryl to make me go to sleep. And then I would go and close my eyes and I'd have a flashback or I'd have a nightmare. And then I would try and go back and take more Benadryl, not knowing that I was doing it. Some of the hardest parts about dealing with PTSD that Star has benefited me in was going into public. A lot of times in the military, when you got attacked in crowds of people, and that's because they knew that we wouldn't shoot back at them. We wouldn't shoot back at innocent people. So the hypervigilance part of PTSD is a very big thing. She's tremendously helped the ability for me to go into a grocery store, even something simple as that, and be around crowds of people. For some of the people that were down in the same program that I was, they may have not been in a grocery store for anywhere between 7 and 9 years, just because they were so anxious in getting out of the store once they were in it. So it was a huge testament to what the dog can do for a handler, just doing something simple like going into the grocery store and going shopping.
Out here in Idaho, I'm kind of by myself. I've been in the Guard here in Idaho for going on 16 years now. I'm with firefighters. We used to be out of Driggs, but we're in Boise now. So I deployed to Iraq as a firefighter. That was my job. I had 48 hours notice to pack my bags and head out. Being a firefighter, I wasn't engaged directly in combat. We got mortared frequently, but I figured, I'm not one of those guys that's going to have PTSD. I wasn't involved in combat. I wasn't down kicking doors and any of that stuff. So I came home, went back to school and work, and got a job doing what I wanted, and was doing good until about the 10-year anniversary of me being home. All of a sudden, I started noticing I was angry all the time. I didn't want to deal with crowds. I couldn't go to Walmart. It just drove me nuts to be in Walmart. And I started suffering from depression, and I hid it from my spouse. I hid it from everybody at work. In fact, when I went and started to get help, my wife didn't even know I'd made my first appointment to go visit somebody to get help because I was so bad. Because I was hiding it, because I didn't want to admit that I had a problem. Of course, the VA wanted to put me on medications, and I'm like, I don't want to do that. I want to do everything I can without being on meds, because, that's not a way to live like a zombie. So I kept going for a couple years, and I just wasn't getting better where I wanted. So my wife knows that I have an affinity to animals. Anytime I'm anywhere, they just come up to me. Anyway, she's like, maybe we should look at getting you a service dog. And so I Google searched for about 3 months, and I finally stumbled across this one out of Illinois, which happened to be close to where I grew up. So I put an application in and it got accepted. And so I got Maverick in December of this last year, and it has changed my life around. I didn't realize how much a service dog would change me, but it did. My wife says I'm almost back to normal. I'm back to normal. I can go to the store again. I can go to my kids' games. I couldn't stand to be at my kids' games. I can do that stuff again because I have somebody who's with me all the time.
So I work as a paramedic in Ohio. I love working as a paramedic. I worked as a paramedic before I deployed overseas. I went over to Iraq and Afghanistan both, and then when I came back, I continued working as a paramedic. When Star came on with me, we adapted to the ambulance, and she actually rides on the ambulance with me to every call that we go to. She's the first dog on an ambulance in the country, which we're trying to change. We're trying to make that more available and trying to show people or employers that it can work, and it does work.
Unfortunately, I'm still working with my city. We're still in talks to try to get my service dog with me at work. I haven't had as good as luck because it is such a new concept. I'm the first firefighter in the state of Idaho to request to have a dog at work. I'm only the second or third probably in the whole country. 2 years ago, I knew nothing about service dogs. I knew they existed, but I knew nothing about it. But now people are asking me the laws. People are asking me to explain how it is. And so I've had to become an expert to know the laws, because I have to be able to defend myself, say, no, this is what the law is. This what counts as a service dog. This is what a therapy dog is, and this is what an emotional support animal is. And I have to explain to people the difference all the time. And most people are very glad for the information. They just don't know. And so currently with my city, I think that's a lot of the problems I have, is they just need more education. And thankfully, meeting with some of the people who have set this up and other people in the state, I've starting to make the contacts to hopefully help spur that education along.
When I got my job at Putnam County EMS, I went to the interview prepared to go in to explain about the dog. For anybody that's out there that has a service dog that is maybe going to get a new job or looking to seek elsewhere, or any type of employment that you have to do an interview for, I suggest taking your dog with you. I took my dog with me to the interview, and she did a great job. And I went in with a plan. You know, I went in knowing what I wanted to talk about, what I wanted to tell the employer about as far as how obedient she is, show the different commands that she can do, show how she gets in the ambulance and how she operates and how controlled she is. And I think that because of the plan that I came up with before going into the interview, it made getting the job a lot easier. Obviously my background helped a little bit, but knowing that we could operate together in unison as a team, and it didn't affect anybody else and it didn't affect the employer, made it a lot easier. So one of the things that I also did was, I was lucky enough that she's smart enough that I could train her to search for people. She can actually search for the individual and smell them out so that we can find them. That was also a good tool for me to take to my employer and say, you know, we can do this. We've been trained to do this. We work on it all the time, and it's a way for us to help the employer for any future issues that we might have. Also, working on an ambulance and having Star in the ambulance has been a benefit for when we have PTSD patients or kids that are scared to go in the ambulance, even adults that are scared to go in the ambulance or scared of what might happen. She's been able to help calm them as well. When I put her in the ambulance, I secure her in there, and she stays there until I command her otherwise. So it's kind of a scary thing for employers, which is understandable. It's something that we're trying to raise awareness to, and I think that we're doing a very good job of it so far. It's in early stages, but having service dogs around is obviously in early stages as well. Some common misconceptions of PTSD, the thought process comes in that because you have PTSD from being in the military, well, you can't work as a paramedic because you're in traumatic situations all the time. And that's not the case. Star controls that state that I'm in. So when she goes to work with me, she constantly is aware of how I'm feeling and what I'm doing. And just having her by my side gives me the ability to continue my job and do it well. Star is what I always say is my medication. She's the one that's taken me off medication and been able to break me free of that and improve my life. Some of the things that she does and that some people might not be aware of, so she works off of skin cell changes. We shed 1 million skin cells a minute as humans. When she picks up on a skin cell change that the scent is off or different, she recognizes what's happening and then adapts to that and reacts to it. So for instance, having a nightmare in the middle of the night, she smells that skin cell change. Like if you've ever had a nightmare in the middle of the night, you woke up kind of sweaty, that's that skin cell change. She smells that and she comes up to the side of my bed and will paw at my head until I wake up. Second night we were together in Florida, she woke me up from 3 nightmares in one night. So it was an immediate connection that we had. If I was sleepwalking, which she's done also, it's a different smell, it's a different skin cell change to her. So she responds to it by getting up on the bed and laying on top of me before I even get up. So since I've had her, I've never had a sleepwalking incident. She's always stopped it before it happens because she smells it before it actually happens. One of the main things that she does is she protects my 360 security perimeter. So she will always be around me, and I can put her in those positions, but most of the time she does it on her own. So when I'm standing in a standstill position and there's people behind me, she'll stand on my right side and face behind me so that nobody comes up from behind me and startles me. It's very important to understand that you don't want to bother the service dog when the vest is on. When the vest is on, the dog is working, and that's the most important thing to understand. Obviously, she has do not pet signs on her, and that's because she has to continuously be focused on what she's doing. She has to be continuously focused on me, and if she's distracted by that, then it could be detrimental to me or her. If you're ever approached by a service dog or you come by a service dog, it's just better to ignore the dog and continue on. It makes less stress for the handler, and that's the most important thing. With PTSD, we have a lot of stress, anxiety, panic attacks, stuff like that, and the less stress that we can have on our shoulders, the better. If there is any employers out there that are listening, I think it's important to hear that the relationship between a service dog and their handler at work is very important. And the reason why I say that is because if the dog was away from the handler for 12 to 8 hours a day, that's hours that you've lost together. The dog has to constantly be aware of your reactions and what you're doing and how you smell and all those good things that they pick up. So it's important that the dog and the handler are together all the time. I don't ever have any problems at work. I never had a situation that came up that I'd had a flashback or anything like that. I've explained that to my employer because the initial reaction is, well, if you don't have any issues when you're at work, then what do you need to have the dog for? Well, the dog has to be there so that we can constantly be working off of each other. That relationship has to continue to work together in order to make it work. So we've been together 24/7 since September, and it's worked great.
Like Louis said, that bond between the handler and the dog is super special, and it's so important. And that's the problem I'm having right now with not being allowed to have my reasonable accommodation at work. I'm starting to lose some training with him, so when I get home after being gone for 2 or 3 days, it takes me a whole another day or two to get him back into working. And so that's why we want to stress so much the education, if you can give to employers or people, that we got to keep the handler and the dog together for that reason.
If anybody is out there that is either seeking a service dog or has a service dog, keeping to continuously train the service dog is very important. And that's so that that dog can benefit you for the long run, as long as the dog can continue to work and be supportive towards you. So, you know, Star is a 1.5-year-old puppy. I hope to have her until she's at least 11 or 12 years old, hopefully. She's done a great job to this point, and it's just because we continuously are working together. So it's important to keep that training up and continuing ongoing.
But it's been interesting. Everywhere I go, everyone asks me, hey, are you training him? I'm like, nope, he's mine. And they give me a weird look. And it's like, you know, I make the decision how I feel that day, whether I want to get into. It's because I have PTSD, you know, and it comes back to, well, you don't look like it. I'm like, well, that's because my dog is helping me. You know, he's changed me around. If you would have seen me 6 months ago, you would have seen a huge difference. He's been great for me. He stays with me all the time. He sleeps on my leg. That's one of the problems I have is I go to sleep at night, I wake up and there's no blankets on the bed at all anymore. I thrash so bad at night that I just kick them all off. He sleeps on my legs, I don't thrash, I sleep so much better. He's been trained to retrieve objects. He can turn on the lights. He's not as good at it, but I can just tell him lights and he'll reach up and flip the light switch on and off. So that's one of the things he's been trained to do. I love what I do, and I like where I'm at now. I did not like where I was a couple years ago, and I'm thankful that I have Maverick, my service dog, to be able to get me back to being normal, if you could say that. back to enjoying life again and be able to be with my family, be able to go places with them.
Thank you to all the service dog handlers out there or trainers that have worked with your dogs. It's great to see that. I hope that we see more and more of that going forward.